Toni, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I reached out to you because a couple of months ago or a month ago or something like that, Lecrae sent out a tweet about abortion and pro-lifers, and you'd called him on the carpet for that tweet, and he responded to you. He was just being sarcastic. But then he releases this video yesterday explaining his thoughts on abortion, and I couldn't help but think of you immediately because of your going back and forth with him on Twitter. And so have you seen the video? And if so, what are your thoughts about it?
I did see the video, and I initially was very frustrated because he has such a big platform. And I know a lot of young people are looking up to him. And so I watched it once. And of course, when you're like so frustrated, you can't really think straight. So then I took that in, and then I watched it again to have a more critical thinking process about it, because it is an emotional thing for me as well, but I don't like to bring points across just from an emotional side. So that's why I watched it again, to really try to get where he was coming from. And as someone who is a believer, I was very confused by his stance. It felt very confusing. It did not feel firm. It did not seem even biblical, really. A lot of his arguments were arguments that I would hear from the pro-choice side, honestly. And
Yeah,
I
100%.
felt like, what was that? Sorry.
100%. I agree with you.
And it was disappointing. I mean, you have a Black man who is supposedly a believer, who has this strong influence, who God has done so much in his life. And I feel like he's missing the point. He said that he wanted a holistic view or approach to abortion, but yet I don't see him giving that stance in what he was saying. I felt like he was making a lot of excuses for why women choose to have an abortion rather than giving practical ways to protect the unborn while protecting women at the same time. Because abortion is a lie. It is not only is it hurting women in the womb, and obviously boys too, but it's also harming women, physically, mentally, emotionally. And God has called men to protect. And the way that he described his story, I just didn't see it was helpful to, especially where we're at right now when it comes to abortion. And to see, I was reading some of the comments too on his YouTube, and there were some that were just like, no, like abortion is murder, like there's no excuse. But then there were a lot of young, I don't know if they were young or not, but we're just like, thank you for this, thank you for this perspective. And I'm like, oh, like, so I felt like I needed again to say something. I felt obligated, obviously, to say something in this because I'm very similar in the sense of I've gone through an abortion too, except that I'm a woman. So, and he mentioned that in the beginning. He's like, I don't know what it's like to go through it because I'm a man, but I know what it's like to pressure a girl to have one. So I wanted to give the perspective of, yes, I've gone through it, but I also know the responsibility because I've been redeemed to bring hope to the situation and not excuses. And I think that was because of the healing process that I allowed God to do in me, that I know what freedom is when you give everything over to Christ and you accept that forgiveness and but also own what you did. And I didn't feel like he really took ownership of what he did. And again, blaming it on our skin color and blaming it on how much money we make or don't make. I mean, there are women all across the board who are having abortions. It's not just poor women who are having abortion. And that's one of the lies that the mainstream media pushes all the time, that poor women and women of color need abortion. So that's why we need to have access to abortion, when there is not a lack of access for women of color or poor women to have an abortion, because 80% of the abortion clinics are in our neighborhoods. So that's a lie. So there were so many things that were contradicting, and I could go on and on and on, but I would love to hear your questions or your thoughts. But I did make a video today and I posted it on my Instagram and my Facebook. I'm actually getting, I believe, shadow banned on Instagram. Like my following has not gone up at all. And usually if I put stuff like this up, it like skyrockets, you know?
Yeah.
And nothing. So I know it's not being seen. So on Instagram, it's my full name, Toni McFadden, with the number 12. So go and look for that video, because you won't see it if, yeah.
Toni McFadden 12, and that's Toni with an I, correct?
Yes, Toni with an I.
Okay. Yeah, I watched the video several times as well. In fact, when I first saw it, I watched 3 times in a row. Just because, same thing, I was extremely frustrated, you know, while I was listening to it the first time. And, you know, I just thought, well, wait a second, maybe I'm not giving him a fair shake. You know, maybe I'm reading into this something that he's not saying, you know. But another reason to really listen to it so many times is he kind of rambled. Like, no offense to Lecrae at all, but he kind of just like rambled, and he'd start to make a point and then go on this other point and never circle back to that first point. And so you kind of didn't know where he was standing or what he was saying exactly. Except it was very clear that he's repeating a lot of the talking points that, you know, the pro-abortion side says, you know. And when Pro-Life Man gets attacked by trolls, you know, wow, the trolls are saying the same thing Lecrae is saying. You know, this is really interesting. I'm not calling, you know, Lecrae a troll at all. But it is concerning coming from a man that, you know, at least at times says he's a Christian. I know he's done several interviews in the last few years that says he doesn't want to be labeled a Christian artist, which is odd to me because of the whole 116 brand that I'm pretty sure he was a part of, that, you know, is not ashamed. But that, I guess that's a whole different discussion. But, you know, I also found this video really interesting and ironic because in your original back and forth with him on Twitter, it was over this tweet here that I'm bringing up on screen. It says, what if Christians who want to reduce the number of abortions supported funding healthcare for women, dealt with the systemic racism that creates poverty for women of color, and addressed the income gap between white people and people of color? And you called him out on that, and, you know, he responded to you of oh, I was being sarcastic. You know, and then, you know, and I guess that was probably replying
to me.
Yeah, it didn't sound sarcastic there to begin with, but now in this video he's saying all of the same things. So I guess it wasn't sarcastic, was it, Lecrae?
No, it was
Did
not
you?
sarcastic.
I guess Lecrae just couldn't handle Toni McFadden, so he just said that to get you off of him.
I don't know, but you know what's funny is this is a really funny story. So I saw a post of his close to the election, and it had a picture of him with, I believe, Biden, Obama, John Lewis, Stacey Abrams. And I was just mentioning, like, he had cut the comments off, so you couldn't comment on the picture. But his title was just saying, you know, you'll look at this and just see political, but whatever it was. But it was, again, that wishy-washy stuff that, you know, what is your stance? Like, what is the point of doing this? You know, and so I private messaged him, not thinking like anything, and he wrote me back. And I was like, oops. Like, I didn't think he would be. I mean, you have 1.8 million followers. What do you care what I think anyway? but we basically had an back and forth kind of private conversation. And what I gathered is it does seem to me he's just struggling. And I don't know what it's like to be in that kind of space and try to own who I am in Christ, but yet have all these other influences. But I'm like, get it together. Like,
Right.
God gave you this platform. It's not yours. And he could take it away if he wants to. And it's not about the platform. It's about who you're representing. And when you stand before the Lord, it's not going to be about Lecrae. It's going to be about God and how you're allowing him to use you. And so I don't know, maybe I'm like a thorn in his side right now because I keep popping up, you know, because I did that video for Students for Life because I work with Students for Life too. So that's where he saw my comments and the first thing he said. And then I wrote an op-ed on that same thing with a different organization. And then I made that comment to him in his private messages. And now I just made this video. So he's probably like, this girl like will not be quiet.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is my lane in the sense of like, this is the calling on my life.
Yeah.
To expose the lie of abortion, especially in the Black community, because we are disproportionately targeted and we are dying out because of abortion. Like our race has not grown at all. Like we're stagnant right now. So I'm just like, it's a lot easier to focus outside of the womb in the injustices. And it's not like those injustices don't matter. But when you think about Black Lives Matter, you're never going to see them protesting or burning down a Planned Parenthood. And I'm like, 360 Black lives die daily from abortion. So why isn't anyone talking about that? Why are we making excuses for it rather than getting to the root of the problem? So I think your video went.
Yeah, my camera's just 2020 in right now.
Yes.
It's all good. You know,
top right here. You know?
We don't need it to see me anyways. Yeah, you know, it's funny because towards the end of his video, he was like, look, if you disagree with me, you don't got to fight me, you know, and I just couldn't help but wonder if he's thinking about Toni McFadden when he said that.
I would love to have a conversation with him, or I would love to watch him have a conversation with another pro-life person, because it's easy to just be on camera, talk about your own ideas and not be challenged. Right. And so, you know, I would love to see him talk to like Kristen Hawkins or Abby Johnson or some, you know, these prominent pro-life people who, you know, have been in this for so long and really know what the pro-life movement is doing. And so I felt like it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Disrespectful in a way for him to say to us, basically, you only care about the baby being born, which I get those messages all the time. Oh, you just care about you're a pro-birther and blah, blah, blah.
It's language. Exhausting.
Same language. So I'm like,
yeah,
we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be set apart. Why am I hearing the same language?
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah. I was really surprised by that because, you know, he started out towards the beginning of like, yeah, I've worked with all these pro-life people and pastors and organizations and supported them.
He didn't name any of them.
It didn't name any of them. And then he goes on to say, you know, these things need to be addressed and no one's addressing them. Okay, well, clearly you haven't been around the pro-life movement, at least in the last decade, okay, you know, or longer, because there's so many organizations out that are addressing these other things. I mean, first of all, we can be pro-life first. You know, the pro-life movement is the only ones that are required to address all of the world's injustices before you can go after the thing that you are fighting for, you know, so there's that. But also, the pro-life movement is very broad. You know, there's all kinds of different organizations doing all kinds of different things. I mean, goodness, there was like a CNN article like a year ago complaining about how there's more than 3,000 crisis pregnancy centers across the U.S.
Exactly.
Okay, what are they doing? What are those
Right.
crisis pregnancy centers doing? They're providing free diapers, free formula, free baby food, free baby clothes and cribs and car seats, yada yada yada, forever and ever. Everything. And there's also maternity homes starting to pop up all over the place for pregnant women, or a woman that has recently had a child as an infant or a toddler and needs a place to live. And in my little tiny city of 22,000 people, we have a maternity home. That's constantly helping women that are in difficult pregnancy situations or recently had a child. And it's just like, dude, look around. Like, it's easy for you to say this right now, like, oh yeah, no one's addressing it, and then the pro-abortion side that's watching this video,
Yep,
they're going, bravo, bravo, brother,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, no, that's not true though. There's
Yeah.
so much out there. And we truly care. Again, have a conversation with the pro-lifer. And Tony, don't sell yourself short. He doesn't need Kristen Hawkins or Abby Johnson. How about Toni McFadden sit down and have a sit-down conversation with him?
Yeah.
And show, and that's why our first video that we ever did on Pro-Life Man is our pro-birth video. Are you pro-life or are you pro-birth? Where we lay out all the different things going on across the country, and we highlight a couple specific centers doing really extraordinary things.
Right.
Because this is the most common argument, that it comes at us from the other side, and unfortunately now from Lecrae as well. One thing that I did find funny towards the very beginning, he's like, he's criticizing evangelical voters, pro-life voters. And he starts with, the narrative of evangelical voters narrows down to supporting the unborn. Yeah. Yep. Guilty.
Yeah. And I'm like, listen, if the unborn do not have rights, we don't have rights. Really? I mean, they are the most vulnerable. How you treat them affects everything we do outside of the womb. It's all being affected by that. And I'm like, how do you not see that? How do you say all these scriptures? I felt like he was just like naming them just to name them, but wasn't really owning what those scriptures were saying.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, yeah.
It was odd that he, in the beginning, he said, so I support the unborn, and I agree that they don't need to be, slaughtered or whatever word he said. They don't need to be killed because of social circumstances. But then the whole rest of the video, he's like justifying abortion for social circumstances.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, which is it, buddy? You know what I mean? Like you said, I think he was just saying the scriptures so that, okay, he said the scriptures. Okay,
yeah.
he's all right. He's, to get those check boxes.
Right.
And then a line not too long after criticizing the evangelical voters, he says, I have a million reasons to be pro-life. However, it's like, oh, okay.
Let's disregard everything I just.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here it comes. Also, so the thumbnail, and I'm going to bring that up on screen right now. So the thumbnail for the video, it says, more than just a moral issue. I don't even know what that means.
Me either. I have no idea what that means.
But his quote, and there goes to my camera 2020. I'm just going to keep moving, act like it's all good. And in fact, if I delete myself, then you can't hear me either. So we'll move on. So he says, it's a moral issue, but it's also a social and economic issue. It's also a systemic oppression and marginalization issue. All these different issues are going on that no one is addressing. What are your main thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is, if you want to talk about systemic racism, look no further than Planned Parenthood. I mean, has he done any research at all on the purpose of Planned Parenthood? 80% of their facilities in our area, Margaret Sanger being a racist. I mean, there have been 300 employees from Planned Parenthood who have come out and said that they're racist, like employees in New York City. And I mean, Margaret Sanger pushed birth control to control the Black population. Like that was forced sterilization. So this starts from the beginning, and it's still affecting us today. I forget who quoted this, but they said they have convinced us to do it ourselves, meaning they've convinced Black women to do it themselves as if they're really helping, but they're not. And then we have the breakdown of the home, fathers not being fathers or not in the home. And so it's this cycle. But then to me, he's living in this place of a victim mode. Like everything is this victimization. And that's why I said in my video today, when I owned what I did without blaming everything outside of me, it forced me to look at how wicked my heart is apart from Christ. And you can't blame everything else on that. So our culture has done such a great job making minorities and African Americans feel like they're a victim and we deserve this, and woe is me. And, I always look back at, slavery and those who have fought so hard for me to be able, my husband's white, okay? Years ago, that would not be able to happen,
Right.
I'm like, we have so much freedom and we're living as if we're still slaves.
Wow.
Why?
Yeah.
And you're perpetuating it still. Why? Yeah. Look at his life. Look at what you've been able to accomplish, So that is just rhetoric to me. That's all I hear when I hear those. It's like, this is the typical rhetoric to, again, excuse murdering the unborn.
Yeah. And this is slightly off topic, but, talking about his success, I've been to a Lecrae concert. And let me tell you, I don't know how many Black people I saw in the audience. It was mostly white people, and so, I don't know, just this whole racism narrative, is just really intense this year.
Right.
Thanks 2020. Another thing that he said that really got my blood boiling, because I hear this so often, not even so much from the super duper pro-abortion secular left, but I hear this a lot from our progressive Christians, left-leaning Christians. And, and he made this point of like, oh, murder is illegal, but it still happens. So stop trying to make abortion illegal, because it's still going to happen. You think it's going to stop, and so I'm curious your thoughts about that argument.
Yeah, I pointed that out too in my video. And I said, would you say the same thing about slavery? It makes no logical sense. We know murder's wrong. You don't have to tell anyone. But the point is, with slavery, they're looking at people in an inhumane way and saying, you're not a person. Therefore, we can do whatever we want with you. And that's the same mentality for the unborn. You're not really human. So we could dispose of you if we want to. And to say that, that we can just disregard that and say, oh, well, it's probably going to still happen anyway, so might as well just keep it legal. Are you insane?
Yeah. On that slavery topic, it reminds me of the people that, claimed that they cared about the African American and cared about the slave, but they still fought against ending slavery, and they there goes my camera again, it's all good. But my camera's not happy I'm talking about this. I got to get a new pro-life camera. They would say stuff like, oh yeah, I care about the slave, I care about the African American, or back then their language was the Negro, I care about the Negro, but they can't read, they can't write, how are they going to survive? They're doing really great on the plantation, and they come up with all these excuses of like, yeah, I care about them, and sure, they're humans to me personally, but there's all these things that are going to hold them back, and you don't want them to have a horrible life. At least their life on the plantation is pretty good, compared to most people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those same type of arguments being used today, like, oh, you really want a child to be born to abusive parents? No,
And,
absolutely not.
and what I said too was really what it comes down to is people don't want abortion to be illegal because they don't want to own or be accountable for their actions. They want to be
Mhm.
able to have sex whenever they want to, with whoever they want to, and not deal with any of the consequences. Because if abortion is illegal, you're going to maybe think twice before
Right.
you, and people don't want to do that. They
Yeah.
don't want to, they want to do whatever they want.
Yeah, and that's what struck me, and actually that segues perfectly in my next question. At one point he says, "What are you going to do about the environments that allow abortion to continue?" Okay, first of all, allow abortion to continue. Well, number one, let's make it illegal. Okay, that will help not allow it to continue. But then,
Mm-hmm.
he talks about all these environments, like in the beginning, he's like, oh, single parent home and fathers incarcerated and stuff like that. But then he doesn't address any of that. He
Yeah.
just says, oh, just do free healthcare and free this and free that, or else you're not really pro-life. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And don't make it illegal. Okay, you're making no sense. But like, especially as a Christian man, I'm
Mm-hmm.
really shocked that he didn't address some of these accountability
Yeah.
things.
Well, I'm not surprised because he didn't take accountability for his own abortion. So, out of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Mm,
So, to me, what red flag was raised for me was I questioned if he's actually healed from his own abortion and if he's really owned that. And I don't know. I mean,
right.
maybe I don't know what his healing process has been like, but hearing it and knowing, like, I've had so many conversations over the years with couples and with, men and women. It's different for guys to really take that in.
Mm,
And because God has created you to protect, when a lot of guys have come into the healing process, what ends up breaking their hearts is that not only did they not protect the girl, but they didn't protect their own child. And as I was hearing him speak, it still felt like it was more her issue
mm,
and not
that's
his.
interesting.
That's just what I was picking up. Again,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if he'll have a conversation with me,
Yeah.
maybe, I could draw those things out. But even though he was being personal about it, I still felt like there were still other things that he still needs to deal with as well to really own that. And I actually remember after when I was going through my healing process, there was still a point of time where even though I knew, even after being a believer, even though I knew that what I did was wrong, I was still like, I'm still glad I don't have a baby. Like, I'm still glad I went through that process. And then at one point I was like, oh my gosh, like
Mm,
I wish in a heartbeat I could go back and change what I did and I would give my baby life without hesitation. So I had to go through that too as a woman who carried this child for a period of time. I finally got to that place where it was like, no, it was wrong no matter what. And this was a precious life that I did not protect. And I did the opposite of what God created me to do and what my body was created to do. And that was a difficult, thing to face. But I feel like that's why I'm where I'm at and
mm,
why I can talk so freely about this because I am 100% free and healed and know that one day I'm going to get to see my child. And I also know that every time I share my story, that my baby is no longer a statistic, that
mm.
my child is saving other people's lives and helping other women not to choose the same way that I've chosen. And so that's what I want for Lecrae. Like, as I want him to come to a place where he's helping other people see you don't have to choose that.
Mm.
You know, like that's
Yeah.
why I was saying in my video is if we're really believers, we're carriers of hope and redemption, not death. Like we're carriers of life because life lives in us. So why would we be making excuses for people to end life? Like that's the opposite of who God is. So again, I just feel like there's still seems like there's some more healing to be had.
Yeah, and you know, and it's not like you can't criticize the pro-life movement, right? You know,
No.
that's not what we're arguing at all.
Mm-mm.
Are there areas to do better? Absolutely, and I've
Yes.
definitely been very vocal, especially, you know, he's talking about evangelicals, especially with evangelicals. You know, we could all be stepping up and doing better. You know, I'm personally am not Catholic, but I'm telling you what, the pro-life movement is by and large, it's not even close, Catholic funded. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and the people opening up their checkbooks to serve the pro-life movement, whether it's standing at the abortion clinics or going down to the marches or funding all these crisis pregnancy centers and stuff like that, by and large, it's Catholic dollars and Catholic people. And that's where the evangelicals have really, you know, they need to step up their game quite a bit. You know, it's like the pro-abortion side is so well funded, like so well funded. This is a point that my buddy Seth Gruber makes a lot. There are so many full-time people fighting for pro-abortion rights, and we really need to get more people, more pro-life people, full-time fighting for these rights too. And so he always calls out, you know, the pro-life side. Let's fund organizations. Let's fund these full-time positions, you know, so we can at least compete somewhat close. You know, and so there's definitely criticisms for the pro-life movement, definitely areas where we can step up. But so many of his arguments were just from the other side, from the pro-abortion side that you hear all the time. And I'm going to end it with this. And Toni, I did not expect our video to go this long, but I'm really enjoying having this conversation with you. So my last point that, again, I think my blood had calmed down by the end of the video. And then he says this, and it's boiling all over again. And that was, some women, their lives are on the line. What would you have a woman do if her life is on the line? She's going into labor and she has to choose between her life and the baby's life. So Toni, what would you have that woman do?
Okay. First of all, I didn't even get to talk about this in my own video because I was like, oh, my video is too long already. So I didn't even get to touch that. But I'm like, do you know that babies can live outside the womb like the earliest, like 21 weeks? So he's like waiting till labor. Like she's gonna, I'm like, and not a lot of women really have to abort for medical reasons. I mean, that's why I said in my video, abortion, it will always be the intentional killing of a human life. That's what abortion is. Now, really, if a mother, it's between life and death, of course, that's her choice. If the mother chooses, like, say she has cancer or something, and the chemo would, she needs to get chemo, whatever that is, of course you want to save her life. But 99% of women who are having abortions is not because of medical reasons. It's because it's inconvenient. They don't want a baby. Maybe they're, feel like they're too old to have a baby, or most of the time it's financial or inconvenient. And so this is another rhetoric of the pro-choice side, is they take the most extreme example and to excuse all the 99% of women who are actually having abortion. It's usually rape or something medical, to excuse all the
Right. Yeah, and okay, woman, if she's at the point of labor, just to go on his exact point, okay, deliver the child and support both.
Yeah,
and that's always been our argument.
Baby?
Either one way or another, she's delivering a child. Either it's alive or it's dead. Either it's alive, or it's been intentionally killed and it's dead because it's been intentionally killed. She's delivering either way at that point. So
I don't
absolutely
know if
go in.
Different abortion procedures
Probably
that
not.
happen.
I would assume at this point. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and this kind of segues into my final point to Lecrae. He wants to make the point of like, oh, let's not make it illegal. Do you think making it illegal is really going to stop it? Okay, well, counterpoint to your whole video, Lecrae. Do you really think providing free everything is going to stop abortion while it's still legal, while Planned Parenthood is still targeting minority neighborhoods? Do you really think that providing free everything, daisies and roses everywhere, everyone is waiting like a butler to wait on the pregnant woman? Do you really think that's going to end abortion? I'd say no.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point.
And Lecrae, we're not fighting with you. We're not here to fight with you, but man, you made some really poor arguments. We will challenge you. Absolutely. And I do challenge you to invite you to sit down with a legit pro-lifer. And whether that's the big shots, the big dogs, like Abby Johnson, Lila Rose, I need a new camera, or us littler shots, man, you've already interacted with Toni. Sit down with Toni. Let's have this conversation. Yeah,
that would be awesome too.
Seth Gruber, it'd be great to actually sit down. Let's sit down. Let's have a cordial, kind conversation, and let's let people see the arguments that come out on both sides and the counter arguments, and let people see, Christians sit down and talk about this issue.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, take us up on that, Lecrae.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining me, Toni. I'm sorry this video has been so long. Again, pro-life funding. We need new cameras. Pro-life funding.
I'll hand you out.
And then please go check out Toni's website. It's ToniMcFadden.com. You can see it there on the screen. And I don't know. Do you even do events as well? I mean, I know COVID. So minus COVID, do you do speaking events?
I do. So churches, Zoom events, whatever people are comfortable with it. But there's a link on there to book me to speak. So.
Okay. Awesome. And you can follow her on Facebook, Instagram. She's like us. We don't have Twitters because they're just going to censor us anyways.
I'm not a Twitter fan.
Yeah, us either. So thank you again so much on short notice joining me on this video and spending a ton of time. This was a great conversation. And and I thought it was important because he's like, he talks about minorities and then he says, oh, I don't have the experience of the woman. Well, here's Toni McFadden, and she completely refutes your points. And Lecrae, stop talking like the pro-abortion side, please.
Please.
All right. Thank you so much. You have a great day, Toni.
Thanks. You too.